welcome to another Warcraft 3 audio commentary. This is ScryMind, and I'm going to be doing 3 solo games in this audio. So stay tuned. There's going to be different matchups and different maps, but they're going to be some interesting games. And so this first one is going to be on Twisted Meadows. As you can see, it's going to be Undead versus Orc. I am actually the Undead player at the top right spawn. My opponent is the Orc at the bottom right spawn. So we're going to speed it up here a little bit, and I'm going to be going for, I started to go for a Death Knight, but I ended up actually switching to a Lich. My build order is sort of an early, somewhat earlier hero than the usual Fiend build, but I'm still going to be getting a Graveyard. So my goal really is going to be teching, and I switched to the Lich, so it sort of messes up the whole early Altar Ziggurat, but this is going to be a strategy I saw one of Grubby's opponents do on his live stream. Now, his opponent did not win the game, but it was very close, and he could have, you know, with a couple of more breaks or a little bit tighter play, he could have actually beaten Grubby, it looked like, in that game. And this, I'm not actually following the build order very closely, but it's just sort of a similar idea. It's an idea that I've actually tried before, but never specifically with a tower push. And that idea is going to be a Lich with Frost Armor first, and a Fire Lord where lava spawns are going to be sort of serve as the extra power for a tier 2 tower push, which it seems like a pretty effective strategy. Again, Frost Armor is going to really help everything keep your units alive, keep that Blade Master slowed, and he is going to snipe off an Acolyte, which is really annoying. Not much I could do there. If I was a little bit quicker on the micro, probably could have kept that alive, but I didn't quite get it out of the way as he first started to attack it. He got a couple of free shots in on one of them, so but at any rate, he did take a lot of damage and he's going to have to run away, but he does have a Voodoo Lounge already up, so this is going to be you know, not a very good early game so far for me. But I do sell the Town Portal. I pick up a Dust of Appearance. Now this is actually, I didn't show it, but for some reason, watching this replay, I noticed that he started to build a barracks when he was at tier 1, a delayed barracks, but for some reason he canceled it. I'm not entirely sure what that reasoning was. Possibly he saw me teching and decided he didn't think I was going to tower push. I don't know if this guy was a map hacker. I didn't really check too closely. So, you know, I don't know if he would have necessarily expected a tower push without seeing that Lich, but either way, he canceled his barracks, which is actually terrible for him because having a barracks and a war mill in tier 2 is pretty much the easiest way to counter this strategy. But what's going to end up happening is, and I've got an extra Acolyte here that I built, so just in case he comes back and decides to do his Blade Master shenanigans, I can afford to lose one Acolyte and still have the full 5 for the tech. So he does kill one, but I've still got the 5 as I built the extra one, so it's one sort of counter to that strategy. If you can keep, you know, 5 Acolytes alive, you know, by building a 6th one, then it's going to make it a little bit harder for him to actually cancel your tech. But either way, he is going to be getting tier 2 a little bit earlier than me, but and in the stream, when Grubby's opponent did this strategy, he teched, I want to say he teched either before his altar was finished or before he even started his altar. So he walled off his base, which is going to prevent that, you know, Blade Master annoying harass. My base wasn't walled off. Sometimes I don't quite wall my base off, and sort of get punished for it sometimes, as you just saw earlier in this game. But But yeah, the strategy is pretty strong against, you know, like I said, against an orc. If they don't get a barracks with a war mill, you know, if they can afford to, you know, have a couple of towers up, it's going to really make it harder to get the towers in close to the stronghold, just due to the orc tower range, the damage, and the attack speed. And as well as if you have a barracks up before the tower push comes, especially if you're able to fast tech and you really skip grunts, frost armor is going to be much less effective against demolishers, obviously. And if you can't tower push them, then fiends usually aren't going to be able to just steamroll your opponent. Unless you have a real mass of units. I probably should bring these 3 wood ghouls with me, and we'll see if I actually do that. I want to say that maybe okay, so I really should, when I go to bring this push, I really should do that. But now I'm creeping sort of over here. I don't need to lure that knoll as far away as I did. As you saw, you know, he started to run back to his spawn point, and then I very easily could have, the orc could have ran in there and stole that kill, and maybe stole the item. Been sort of a pretty big advantage for him. I could have put him really close to level 2, if not given him level 2, and could have given him an item there. So, but I see that he's got the B series. I see that he's obviously having the B series. He's already tier 2, but he is going for Wind Riders, which is in small numbers are pretty bad against fiends, especially with lava spawns and a statue here, and web, and a lich. I've got, you know, plenty of anti-air, so he's not really going to be doing himself any favors. Now, fighting over the trees, you know, you could potentially do some damage, and he is going to cancel these ziggurats and kill the acolytes, but in the meantime, he's already lost 1 Wind Rider. He's going to lose the second one, and he's going to potentially lose this 3rd one here. It sort of surprises me going back and watching this. It didn't look like I killed that Wind Rider there, but I knew the first time I saw it, but I guess I did end up killing it. So, but it is possible for units to die as they're TPing out, and the corpse, you know, but Wind Riders don't leave corpses, so that wouldn't really be how that went down. So anyway, I've got this meat wagon here, and he's pretty much out of options. Raiders, while good against towers, are going to be essentially completely useless, but without, you know, sort of a little bit more DPS. Maybe if his Blade Master was level 3, had some items or something. But Frost Armor is going to largely be a good counter against the Blade Master, especially when he gets like level 3. And with his meat wagon, I'm going to be able to knock out his production pretty quickly. And so now he's really sort of, you know, he hasn't left the game yet, but, you know, pretty much realizes it's over. He was sort of trying to set up for a expansion over here, it looked like, which, you know, if he would have been able to do it, would have been great. Probably would have given him close to level, potentially level 2 and 2 on his heroes, and then, you know, if I would have waited, obviously that would have been very, very bad for me. But, the timing worked out pretty well there, even though the early game wasn't great. And like I say, you know, this guy wasn't on Grubby's level micro-wise and strategy-wise, obviously, but you know, it's a strategy that I saw almost work against Grubby, so I want to give it a shot. I had actually tried a Fire Lord and a Lich before, sort of for the combination of Fire Lord, Lava Spawns and Frost Armor, but never specifically with a tower push. I never really fast tech to do that. I tried fast teching for a Beastmaster with a Fire Lord with Undead before. That's a pretty interesting strategy. It gets, you know, it sort of gives you a small window. 2 summon heroes are pretty much countered by Dispel, like Destroyers or Priest, stuff like that. Dryads. It's going to largely counter, but I guess Dryads are sort of countered by Fiends and everything to some degree. So, but at any rate, this next game is going to be on Echo Isles. It's going to be Undead versus Elf. I am going to be the Elf player, and my opponent, Findus, is going to be Undead. The guy's APM is pretty solid. He seems to be fairly confident with the strategy that he plays. He just does, Deathknight Fiends. He is going to get an earlier altar, sort of delayed graveyard, and going to transition to Fiends that way. I am actually going to be doing a tavern build with archers. I'm under the name Ramrod69, sort of an homage to a scene from the movie Super Troopers. Pretty juvenile movie, but it's got its moments. And so at any rate, going to begin for archers, and
your building is complete.
I will let the Tavern Hero be a surprise. I sort of have a handful of Tavern Heroes that I think are okay against Undead. Those being the Panda, the Dark Ranger, the Alchemist, the Beastmaster, and the Pit Lord and the Dark Ranger. I think I said the Dark Ranger. If I said it twice, that might be a clue, because that's actually going to be the hero that I'm getting. I spoiled the surprise there, but the main reason is on this map and a lot of maps, the Dark Ranger is really good at creeping with archers. The skeletons are pretty good against both ghouls and fiends, and the extra damage obviously pretty useful. Silence and Drain Life are decent. I sort of opted for Silence, and the one advantage of Silence is it's sort of a fire and forget. Whereas if you go for Drain Life, you're sort of working against your own, like Black Arrow. When you're using Drain Life, you're not going to be getting the damage off of Black Arrow. You're not going to be getting your regular base attack damage. So, any damage you do with Drain Life, you sort of have to keep in mind that you're losing some base damage and you're losing Black Arrow during the entire duration that you're Drain Life. So, in that respect, they work against each other. Now I know it sort of gets you out of trouble. Can get you out of trouble if you're starting to get focus fired and stuff, but so again, it's not useful, but I sort of think that Silence might be more optimal if you can just sort of micro your Dark Ranger a little better.
Our sacred grove is being desecrated. Have engaged the
notice how easily this Dark Ranger is creeping. I've already got 4 summon units, and his harass is actually going really well. He killed like 2 gnolls over there. I think he killed a troll here. So he's killed several creeps. He's actually got almost as much experience as I do. It's really close, which is ridiculous since I'm the one doing the creeping and he's got just his hero here. So he did a great job in that early game. I did sort of a poor job in sort of spacing him out of that, and how I spread my damage out wasn't great on the creeps. But I do have some wisps scattered around here, so I'm going to see if anything goes down. He hasn't pushed me with ghouls, which is making me think he's transitioning to fiends, which is in fact what he's doing. So yeah, I know that archers they're not really decent against fiends, but you really would rather sort of have a mix with some huntresses once he starts getting a lot of fiends, because for one thing, Nova is going to be just a wrecking ball for archers, and since they're slow moving, if we get into any sort of open ground battle, if the positioning is bad, if he's just got more units, if he creep jacks me or something like that, hunts are much more effective at sort of either escaping or just hit and run attacks, kiting, etc. You can't really kite that well with archers just because they're slow, and when they get hit with Nova, they're going to be even slower, obviously. So Prefer to get some hunts here. I've got 2 Ancients of War up now. I'm going to throw up a
Our
Protector.
sacred grove
I'm
is
throwing
being
up an
desecrated.
Expansion, which he immediately scouts with a Skeleton. So now I know he knows about my expansion, and
Goddess, light my path.
will react a little bit more, maybe cautiously here. Now I do want to get level 3 regardless, so I probably would be creeping one of these camps either way. But
Our warriors
seeing as
have
how I know
engaged
he
the enemy.
spotted my expansion, I sort of would probably be better off to stick around this side of the map in case he decides to press it. It's almost done. He's about another 400 hit points, so these lightning shields are sort of annoying, but I'm going to pick up some trolls here. The Berserker's really good, being able to heal your units with the Troll Priest is pretty good. So he's got 4 Fiends, he's almost back, you know, he's at 200 mana, he used a lot of mana harassing, but now he's pretty much back to 200. But I've got all these skeletons. Notice I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 skeletons. So that really bumps up sort of my damage output, especially against fiends, as the skeletons do normal damage and the fiends have medium armor. So, and again, notice these hunts are chasing down the fiends pretty well, which is going to allow me to sort of pressure them. So now he is out of mana, which is going to be great for me as I can start getting kills. And,
Our warriors have engaged.
the army sizes were about the same, but it was really sort of the extra units, and that allowed me to get that done. Get some unit kills there. And so now, you know, I've got my skeletons over here scouting his expansion. I see he's not expanding, and so he's sort of pulling back. He's only got 3 fiends now. He does have a lich, and he is almost at tier 3. He's, you know, about 70, maybe 60, 70%
Our
away there.
warriors have engaged the enemy.
Which is going to give him access to the Orb of Corruption, which is going to be really strong. Also, Destroyers are a pretty good counter to the Skeletons. Now, they don't really hard counter any of the units that I'm making, but, you know, they're still pretty decent, even against, you know, just hunts and archers, just because they're pretty good at hit and run. They're immune to magic, so I'm not going to be able to hit them with Black Arrow. And just being able to devour any skeletons I might have is a great ability. So, a pretty solid unit. I guess, you know, 1 or 2 destroyers is going to be really strong against the Dark Ranger. If you can get that, so... and now I'm throwing up an Ancient of War at my expansion, and I'm actually throwing an expansion up at his natural, which is just sort of, you know, a little risky, but if he spots it, I cancel it. If he doesn't, he has to, if it gets up, you know, before he hits it, you know, it's going to take him a long time to sort of take it out with fiends, and that's sort of one of the problems with the fiend strategy, and that's why a lot of players, I think, would say that getting an expansion up is usually a pretty good sort of counter strategy to fiends. If you can expand early, it can sort of be a pain for them to deal with, especially if you can like tower it or something. In this instance, I'm throwing up a Protector, another Ancient of War. So if that stuff gets up, it's going to be hard for him to press. And notice I need to cover for it, because if he hits it right now with that orb, this is a really good timing to push it, especially if he can cancel those before they get up. But he's actually creeping, so he's giving me a chance to get into his main base. And while he does have a Nerubian Tower and a Black Citadel hitting and some ghouls, notice that every kill I get on the ghouls and the acolytes is going to give me an extra sort of really strong summon unit. So I got like 2 ghouls, I think I killed 2 acolytes, and a TP out there. So he had to burn his TP. You know, he's going to be very far away from my expansion now. This tower is going to finish the Protector and the second Ancient of War. So now that's going to be really annoying to press. Also, I'm getting Nature's Blessing, which is going to be another 5 armor on. I think it's another 5 armor on at least Ancient of War. I don't know if the Protectors get up to 7, but and also the Tree of Life, I think is going to, or yeah, the Tree of Life I think will be at 7 armor as well. So anyway, now he's going to come back and try to push it. I do not want to engage his army on open ground right here. I've got a ton of resources, and there's no real reason for me. The food counts are really close. I'm slightly ahead, like 7 or no, 3 food. No, 3 food or something. Okay, only 3 food ahead, and a lot of that's probably in wisps. I've got some wisps going into the second expansion. I've got 5 wisps here, 2 more wood wisps here. So this food difference is probably mostly on wisps. If I engage his army on open ground, he'd almost assuredly beat me. He has a destroyer upgrade, so if I start getting skeletons, that's not going to help me. He's just going to pop one of those statues into a destroyer, counter the skeletons, and then it's going to be pretty easy for him to snipe off my archers and the trolls, and then I won't have any anti-air. So then destroyers will be pretty much free to, to just kill units at will. And then again, his level 3 Death Knight and level 2 Witch, which can probably get up to 3 if he wipes my army. Then I would not be able to, I really wouldn't be able to engage that because just the nuke would be too strong. But notice how annoying this is for him. He's trying to get shots in on his protector. He's sort of taking shots from these Ancients of War. And just as he does that, he's going to see me come into his base. And he realizes his situation is pretty dire. He can either continue to kill that Ancient Protector, which, I don't really care about the Protector itself. It's the expansion that's going to be hard for him to take out, and that the Protector's really there protecting, obviously. So he either stays there and tries to kill the expansion, which really wasn't really realistically going to happen with Fiends. At the very, very best he could hope for is maybe he kills that and loses like his whole economy. That would be the trade-off, and that's not really, an expansion for your main and your entire economy is, obviously not a good trade. His other choice was to TP back to his base. That would have been an okay choice. The problem, though, is we had already gone around the merry-go-round, so to speak, once, where I ran into his base. He TP'd back. He was behind in terms of economy. I don't even think he realized how far behind he was, because I had 2 expansions. So, but he knew I had 1 expansion, and he knew it was pretty well protected. So he was looking at either, trying to defend himself, being behind on economy, or trying to take the expansion out. But as you saw, that really wasn't going to happen. So he really was in a no-win situation there. He didn't have a strong enough army to sort of compensate for the being behind on the economy, and I was able to sort of take advantage of that. So let me see what the other replay that I want to show you guys. Give me a second to find it here. And okay, alright, this is going to be an elf versus elf solo game. It's a something really funny happens in this game. Funny from my perspective, obviously. He might not call it as funny, but this is going to be a really close game. And we're going to be doing different strategies. I, of course, am going to be going for a little bit of an off-the-wall strategy, and he is going to be picking a more standard sort of opening. Now, his second and third heroes are not quite standard, but yeah, this is going to be on Terranistan. I am going to be the teal elf spawning at the bottom right spawn position. He's going to spawn at the top left. And yeah, he's going to be doing some Ancient War creeping, and I am not going to be doing that, just doing the tavern build. I'm going to scout him fairly early to find out, what's he up to. Is he going for hunts? Is he doing an Ancient War creep? Which way is he doing it? Is he going for his expansion? Is he going for the shop here? That's possible to do his first. He's just going to be going for sort of the standard one. He's got a Death Knight. And once again, my hero is going to be a surprise tavern hero. It's the Tinker. That's right. Guy's Strip Bolt, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be making an appearance here. And I'm going to immediately head down to the bottom left to expand.
Your
You can
building is
really go
warriors
for
have
either of these
engaged the enemy.
expansions pretty easily with a Tinker and a couple of archers. The reason I chose the bottom left one is I sort of suspect it will be more
Your
likely
building
if
is
he's going to
complete.
sort of stumble upon one without scouting and just sort of be in the right place at the right time. I think it will be the top right one, as his creep pattern looks to be going along the top. That's going to pull him a little bit closer to the top right than the bottom left. But this is sort of my thinking. I've got this wisp here, and so notice he is going to be heading this direction. He has switched to huntresses, and but he also is teching, so pretty decent decision on his part, because if I go for huntresses, he's probably going to want to, especially with this base build that he's got, probably going to want to have huntresses himself.
My path. Our warriors have
So yeah, but
engaged
I'm
the
actually
enemy.
going for archers, but I'm also going to transition. I've made 3 archers now, but I'm going to transition to huntresses as well, mostly for the mobility. Archers are not going to be pressing an elf base effectively at all,
Our
and
warriors
the
have
slow movement
engaged the
speed
enemy.
is going to be a real liability. So yeah, really, ideally, you know, once tier 2 rolls around, if they're going to get dryads or something like that, a few archers are pretty decent to have, but you really are going to want to have huntresses as well. And he's being very aggressive creeping here with his camp. He is keeping his Death Knight alive, but he is taking a lot of damage on his Death Knight. Demon Hunter and Huntress. But he finishes the camp and hits level 3. So it's good to know that these camps, this green, and these other camps here are going to give you level 3 if you have a solo hero. And meanwhile, I'm creeping my shop as well, but I haven't crept these camps yet. So those 3 camps, I don't.
Our warriors have engaged
quite get to be level 3. I think just like 2 and maybe 3/4 or something like that. But I need to get level 3, and I need to do it before he pushes. And now, sadly, I think I'm still going to be short after the green camp, so that's really going to work out great for me. He also added a Tinker to his arsenal, and this push was sort of threatening, but not really. I've got about the same amount of hunts that he does.
Your building is complete.
And some archers. So, but the Demon Hunter actually is a pretty good hero against the Tinker. If you can stay on them and mana burn them, you know, and make them sort of use pocket factories not in ideal situations, like far away from a base, you know, far away from the creep camps, just in the middle of nowhere, then he can just run from the pocket factory and you know, continue to mana burn him. As long as he's hitting mana burn level 2, the Tinker is going to run out of mana very quickly, and then he's just sort of you know, he's got okay stats, but for a hero, but you really aren't going to be, you know, heads up, you're not really going to be doing better off with a Tinker against a Demon Hunter without mana. So, I think he's got a Tinker, so he's going to be throwing pocket factories as well. Since he's got these Dryads, I need to get the Hunters attacking them, and the Archers actually, and they're going to go down. Once he loses those Dryads, he's going to sort of keep these battles you know, sort of even, because if he has Dryads and I don't, I can't really run, I can't really kite, and so it's going to allow him to secure kills, and it's going to be very difficult for me to secure kills when he's got Dryads on the field. So that's sort of the thinking. Sort of similar to like Sorceresses and Raiders. They go down pretty quickly to Archer Focus Fire, or Dryad Focus Fire, or, you know, obviously any kind of piercing. Sorks and Dryas, that is. Raiders go down to normal damage quicker, but the point is the impact is sort of the same. They really mess with the positioning. They sort of lock down your unit a little bit and with ensnare or slow poison or slow itself. So, you know, if you get a chance to kill those, you need to. If you're against Sorks, obviously you're going to want some Dryas for abolish magic, or you know, speed scrolls, or bring a wisp along to detonate or something like that. Because that's going to be a really big sort of. It can be a pretty big difference in a battle. Just one or two Sorks, one or two Dryas, one or two Raiders. So anyway, I'm going to run up here, and I'm really just distracting him to keep my expansion safe while I tower it.
The enemy.
So he's not getting Huntresses, he's going for the Bear Tech, which is, you know, a little bit harder to press towered bases, but he's added a Fire Lord third, so he's really going heavy on the summons. Now notice here though what I was saying about the funny thing about this replay. He has completely walled off his entangled gold mine and his wood wisp here. And I'm not sure if the opening is big enough. He could probably uproot his Tree of Life, but he really doesn't want to do that because that's still pretty bad for his economy.
Our warriors
and I didn't really notice that. I don't think I immediately noticed the situation that he had blocked off his base. But I come back over here and sort of waste some resources. Getting those two sappers to kill that Ancient War was like 430 gold, which is way more than the Ancient War cost. He wasn't really going to be using that Ancient War anymore. Anyway, I guess having access to the lab is nice, but you know, not worth the cost of those sappers. But so anyway, but here's the problem: he can't. I think if he uprooted this, he could probably get back there, but he doesn't want to uproot it, obviously. To have to re-entangle, but he's gonna have to re-entangle this anyway. So
our warriors have engaged.
I think he should just uproot it, but anyway, I've destroyed his entangled gold mine. The problem though is these bears are pretty strong. I don't have any tier 2 yet in terms of production buildings units, and with all these summons and everything, and the bears with roar and rejuve and everything, Pocket Factory. Be able to actually press him in my hand. I wasn't well set up for that as I should have been. I had plenty of resources. I could have thrown down, you know, a couple more protectors, had more units, shadow meld the units in strategic locations to prevent him from getting to the protectors. There's plenty of things I could have did better here, and so it's sort of falling apart up making these protectors, but it's a little bit too little too late. But the good news is I'm messing his economy up quite a bit as well with the Zeppelin. And that's one of the reasons while your base on it can be good, but you need to be mindful how you do it. If you can do it with like an Ancient of War, forming part of the wall, allow, you know, so in case you need to get back up for some reason, like Star Harass, you know, Hunt Seeker, Zeppelin Drop, or something like that, you know, you will be able to just uproot the Ancient of War or Ancient of Wonder or whatever Ancient is sort of taking up part of the wall and get back there without messing your economy up. So now I TP'd into my base thinking I would be able to fight him here, but I did not micro it well at all. And I got my hero caught out and killed. So now he is way ahead in terms of hero levels. He's got some pretty decent army with his bears. I can actually use the rejuve, and he is going to rejuve. So his army is going to be back up to full strength. So right now, I really gave him a shot in his game. If I didn't have my base, my expansion so well sort of towered and protected, this could be really annoying. Also, I'm going to get the Zeppelin and go back up to his base. And he's got a staff of teleportation, really smart thing to do, but once the Pocket Factory goes down, he's going to need more than just a beam hunter to really stop some of the damage. And I noticed that Man is really keeping me down with the Pocket Factory. But right now he hasn't left yet, but the economy is really, you know, the longer this goes, the less chance he has to come back. Now I run my hunch right into his entire army of Dryads and Bears. Really dumb to go that direction, especially since I saw his Tinker. I sort of could have put the pieces together that his army was on the way. But this is one of the advantages of Huntresses versus Bears, is the movement speed. So while Dryads sort of take that away, if I avoid the Dryads, hit and run style macro games can sort of favor the Huntress player to some degree. Now, obviously in a straight fight, the Bears and Dryads are going to tear up Huntresses. And in smaller sort of engagements, as I've said before, the Demon Hunter is incredibly powerful, and the Tinker is sort of less effective in standing battles, because, especially with small ones, because they can just focus the Pocket Factory and, you know, and then just mana burn you out. But I can harass his base continually, and he's at 36 food, and he really isn't going to be able to press my base quite as easily. This expansion that is now my main base, I guess you could say. With all these protectors up and Dryads now finally, there wasn't really anything you could do. I got level 5 on the Tinker, which was going to prove to be a huge problem. And he didn't really have any expansion going up, so no economy from him. Gave me the win. The largest army is pretty close. Unit kills fairly close. He actually killed more than me by about 9 units more. He killed 1 hero to my none. Experience-wise, he was far ahead of me, about 1,000 experience more than me. So. He raised more buildings, but the problem, like I said, was and those units produced are a little misleading. The Tinker Factory, little Robo-Goblins count towards that number, I'm pretty sure. So it wasn't like I had 200 regular units more than him, or, you know, 114 or whatever, or 21, I guess is actually the real number. But a lot of those were summoned units, and so not quite as bad as it looked for him. But the resource count was really where I really got him. I didn't lose any gold to upkeep. He did not lose any gold to upkeep. But I mined about almost 9,000. Looks like about 8,800 more gold than him. Something like that. So pretty substantial income difference there, which sort of translated into me getting more buildings. I believe was where a lot of those resources went. Yeah, I got about 9 more buildings. A lot of those were protectors and ancients in Moonwells, making it nearly impossible for, well, not impossible, but making it a lot harder for him to actually roll over my my expansion. And obviously, if I have a gold source and he doesn't, you know, that's, if he can't win pretty much immediately, that's gonna usually, or have like a huge advantage. He didn't have quite the advantage. Maybe if he was level like 5, you know, maybe the hero level was a little bigger, and, you know, the army size slightly more. You know, if you'd have had like a couple of ballista, that probably would have put him, you know, in a great spot to press that base down easily. Ballista are good against Dryads. They're okay against archers. And in terms of an open ground fight, I really didn't want to engage him away from my base, which Ballista range would sort of force me to do that. So that would have really 1 or 2 Ballista, I think, would have cracked that game and gave him the win, even there at the end with no economy, because he did have a hero level advantage. And Tri-Hero generally does better than Solo Hero. If you have, you know, comparable experience gains, you'd much rather be able to have, like, you know, mana burn and pocket factory and lava spawns than just a really strong pocket factory that does more damage. I mean, now it sort of throws. It's a little bit different if I can get the ultimate on my solo hero, which I was at level 5, but I don't know how close I was to getting that ultimate. So that could be a little bit of a game changer getting an ultimate, but it's still usually preferable to have if you can have similar experience levels. Having tri-hero is often much stronger, uh, especially in really small battles. It's going to be very, very hard to overcome 3 heroes with just one. So again, if he could have forced a little bit more favorable battle to him, and had something to press those towers, then he had a shot. But so maybe it was useful that I killed that Ancient Warrior, even though it didn't look like he was going to make any ballista there. So, but either way, I thought those games were interesting. Some fairly different strategies. Excuse me. At least one of those games was the opponent was, I don't want to try to sound arrogant, but the second game with Thindus, that guy seemed like a pretty good player. On WC replays, I see some people sort of arguing about, are there 2 players using that name Thindus? One guy was saying somebody was sort of using his name that's maybe not as good as him, or maybe it's the other way around. I don't know, but either way, this guy, I think he had like 180 APM, which is pretty solid in my opinion. Not that 180 APM always means you're a good player, but again, his strategy, seemed all right. He sort of was unfortunate for him that I was able to sort of keep map control in an expansion, which really was how I won the game. It wasn't really the crazy army that I had. The early game, it was a pretty decent army to fight him, which allowed me to get the expansion up. So I guess in that respect it was good, but there at the end, his army on open ground would have the undead player would have probably beat mine for like most of the mid to late game. But again, obviously it's a strategy game. Certain armies do certain things well, and certain armies obviously are better at other things. And for example, his army was not good at a base race. The undead fiend army is usually most effective against units and heroes on open ground or in an undead base, or with some choke points, stuff like that. They have really good spells for sniping units and heroes, but those spells, the usual spells for undead, do not give them any advantage against buildings. They can't even hit buildings with Nova, Coil, Carrion Swarm. The only undead spell that hits buildings for the racial heroes is going to be the Lich Ultimate, which is sort of a mythical unicorn, so to speak. I mean, it's like really pretty rare that you can get your second hero up to level 6, in most solo games, especially on a small map like Echo Isles. It's kind of unusual to be able to do that. But at any rate, Fiends aren't, and it's really also based on the Fiend's damage type. Piercing damage is horrible against fortified armor, and now while my army was, a lot of my army was also piercing. Huntresses, I had a lot of Huntresses, which is normal damage is a little better against buildings, but the other point is my workers are protected. My gold miners are in an entangled gold mine, so to even start harassing those, he's got to deal with that. Whereas if I get my army into his base, I don't have to go for the fortified buildings. I can just go straight for the acolytes, straight for the ghouls, and my army was really effective at killing those things. Whereas he doesn't have that option as undead. So that's sort of the strengths and weaknesses of those armies. and how that played out into a win, a pretty easy win. Uh, Seemingly, I mean, it didn't, I really didn't have to go super hard in any kind of battles. It wasn't a lot of transitioning. It was just me getting a massive units and sort of getting a really fortunate timing, really picked my spots pretty well to go into his base, and yeah, it sort of went from there. So yeah, hopefully you learned a little bit from some different strategies. Learned from both what you saw me doing and my opponents doing. Some of that stuff you should avoid. Probably like walling your base completely with elf, but not leaving like an ancient there to uproot, ancient of war, ancient of wonder, what have you, to uproot just in case some kind of crazy situation happens, like a zeppelin drop on your entangled gold mine and everything like that. So yeah, this is gonna be ScryMind signing out. Feel free to subscribe, comment, yada yada. Any requests for strategies, audio commentaries, if you want to do any games with me, feel free to hit me up on here. And yeah, this is ScryMind signing out.